The Galactic Hall of Concordance gleamed like a polished jewel in the void, each corridor a testament to centuries of sterile design and ceremonial excess. Banners of peace and unity fluttered under artificial gravity, as the Empire's finest dignitaries gathered in anticipation. Today was historic, the formal introduction of Earth's chosen warrior into the Intergalactic Alliance, a symbol they claimed of mutual growth, a gesture of harmony. The Empire's top brass thought it charming, harmless, symbolic. Then the doors opened, and in walked Staff Sergeant Buck Malone. He wasn't tall by human standards, but he moved, like a predator that had made peace with bloodshed. His boots clanged against the pristine floor with a rhythm that carried weight, as though each step carried the echo of distant gunfire. His jacket looked like it had survived a war, or caused one. Leather worn, shoulders scarred, and sleeves rolled to the elbow to reveal a pair of forearms corded with sinew and shrapnel tattoos. He wore mirrored shades indoors and chewed gum, like it owed him money. A silence fell across the room as the alien representatives turned to regard the human guest. Ambassador Xyrix, an 8-limbed diplomat of the Urine species, cleared his throat, the one beneath his third mandible, and stepped forward. "Welcome, esteemed human," Xyrix said, his translator humming faintly. "We are honored by your presence. May the fires of peace burn eternally between our peoples." Buck popped his gum and grinned. "That's so. Hope nobody minds I smoke indoors." Xyrix's left eye twitched. "Smoke? Just kidding. Unless I'm not." He slung a duffel bag the size of a child coffin onto the floor. It hit with a sound that made 2 minor dignitaries flinch. Xyrix offered a diplomatic chuckle, the kind that smelled like someone trying not to vomit. "We are eager to learn from you. As a veteran of Earth's many regional conflicts, your perspective is valuable to our understanding of less structured warfare." Buck scratched his stubble. "You mean guerrilla tactics?" "Precisely. I call it figuring it out after everything's on fire." Xyrix blinked slowly, calculating how much of that was metaphor. A pair of Threxian honor guards approached, both armored in ceremonial plate polished to a mirror sheen. They reached for Buck's duffel with intent to inspect, as per protocol. Buck didn't stop them. He just stood there, arms folded, chewing like he was timing a punchline. The moment one opened the zipper, the atmosphere shifted. Inside wasn't the expected soft gifts or symbolic artifacts. It was all business. Buck's M9 sidearm, 2 cylindrical canisters labeled in Earth script, C4, Party Edition, a Bowie knife engraved with the words, "Don't miss twice," and a small scratched music player with a sticker that read, "If found, don't touch, unless you want problems." The Threxian stepped back carefully. "You travel with weapons," Xyrix said, more as a statement than accusation. "I sleep with them too," Buck replied. "Old habit. Keeps the nightmares polite." The room tensed, but Buck's demeanor stayed loose, lazy, practiced. A man used to walking through minefields, and never once flinching. Xyrix decided to shift strategy. "You must be exhausted from your journey. Would you appreciate a tour of the facility?" "Sure, just don't make it weird." Xyrix motioned toward the corridor, flanked by holographic banners celebrating past peace treaties and economic integrations. Buck glanced around. "Lot of pictures of hands shaking," he muttered. "We find such symbolism unites cultures." Earth did that too, usually right before one of those hands got blown off. They reached the Hall of Records, where an archivist, a species composed entirely of translucent gelatin, introduced Buck to the Empire's conflict history. Thousands of years, hundreds of species, and meticulous records of everything from economic sanctions to planetary coups, all catalogued by mood index. Buck scanned the records with half-lidded eyes. "Y'all ever have a bar fight break out?" During a ceasefire? The archivist blinked. No? Then you ain't seen real conflict. Xerix tried another angle. Tell me, Sergeant Malone, what is your greatest combat accomplishment? Buck leaned on a railing, dug a toothpick from his jacket, and stuck it in the corner of his mouth. Depends. You mean confirmed kills? Or the time I shot a tank with a lawnmower engine and a prayer? Xerix was suddenly aware that they hadn't verified his service record beyond a surface-level check. Earth's transmission logs were garbled, patched together by languages long extinct, and half of Malone's file had arrived encrypted, labeled Top Secret, Eyes Melt Upon Reading. He decided not to press. The tour continued into the Armory Nexus, where several species had contributed their finest non-lethal tech. Stun discs, inertia nets, pain suppressants, a rifle that could neutralize nervous systems without permanent damage. Buck picked up a device labeled KRN-11 and studied it like it owed him rent. Y'all built a weapon that politely asks enemies to stop existing. It's our pacification beam. Quite effective. No offense, but this looks like something I'd use to toast marshmallows. Xerix tried not to show offense, but Buck's words spread through the Empire's military circles like a virus with charisma. Rumors took root. Whispers circulated in alien lounges and data terminals. Some laughed, others didn't. Back in the guest quarters, Buck finally relaxed. He placed his duffel bag beside the bed, unfolded a small camp chair, and popped in an old cassette tape. The tiny speaker crackled to life with a twang of electric guitar. Back in black, I hit the sack. An orb floated into the room, part of the observation protocol, disguised as an ambient lighting device. Buck clocked it immediately and threw his jacket over it. Hope you enjoy the show, Bright Eyes. He opened a pocket-sized Earth ration, chewed on jerky that had the consistency of asteroid debris, and stared at the ceiling. He didn't sleep. His eyes never closed, only blinked. That night, Xerix sat alone in the strategic observation chamber, reviewing what little intel they'd gathered on Buck Malone. The encryption had finally begun to unravel, and what emerged was concerning Operation Crimson Harvest, Battle of Fort Argo, Defense of Outpost Dreadnought. Each name carried body counts in the thousands. Each engagement labeled asymmetrical warfare. In one instance, Malone had reportedly held a line solo for 16 hours against a xeno-mercenary horde, armed only with a belt-fed machine gun and an old country playlist. But the kill count wasn't listed. It wasn't missing. It was labeled, still counting. Xerix leaned forward. His blood cooled as he realized something else. Every other human soldier's profile followed a structure. Rank, deployments, retirement, or KIA status. Malone's final entry simply read, Asset redeployed. As contingency. He turned off the screen, sat back, and whispered, What the hell did we bring here? Buck, in his quarters, cleaned his knife slowly, humming along to the guitar solo. Somewhere outside, a pair of guards passed his room. One said, He doesn't look so dangerous. The other, a newer recruit, shook his head. You didn't see his eyes. That man's not looking at people. He's measuring coffins. The first scoffed, but neither lingered. Inside, Buck flicked off the cassette. The room fell silent. He cracked his neck, stretched his arms, and stared at the blank ceiling like it was daring him to blink. Peace, Ambassador, he muttered. Sure. He pulled a small notebook from his bag, the paper stained and creased, and scribbled one line before slipping it back. Day 1. No one dead. Yet. Then he smiled, wide and sharp, like a man who'd been offered a second chance, and was just waiting for someone to ruin it. The Galactic Empire prided itself on order. Predictable, measurable, sterile order. That made Buck Malone a walking anomaly. The next morning, Xerix returned to escort the human warrior to the council chamber for orientation, hoping formality. might rein in the unpredictability. Buck stepped out of his quarters fully geared, wearing his battered jacket, military boots, and that ever-present amused smirk that suggested he found the galaxy more entertaining than threatening. Xerix eyed the bulky duffel slung over Buck's shoulder. "You won't require weapons today. This is a ceremonial session." "I don't carry this for the people I expect to fight," Buck said. "I carry it for the people stupid enough to think I won't." Xerix opened his mandibles but shut them again. The guards didn't dare protest. They led the way through spiraling corridors toward the High Council, where representatives of the galactic species awaited. Inside, the circular chamber buzzed with quiet conversation, punctuated by the occasional pheromonal flare from more expressive species. The human was introduced with appropriate pomp, but no fanfare could dampen the undercurrent of skepticism. In the room, Buck stepped forward and took his assigned position. A Ternakian delegate, covered in golden exoskeleton plating and holding a scroll of ceremonial edicts, leaned into his microphone. "Sergeant Malone of Earth, we welcome you as a sign of trust and cooperation. You are invited to share a summary of your military philosophy, that we may integrate Earth's experience into our unified doctrine." Buck took the mic without hesitation. He tapped it twice, causing a screech of feedback that made 3 delegates recoil. "Military philosophy? Sure, don't die. Make the other guy regret his last 3 decisions. Repeat as necessary." The chamber paused, digesting the simplicity. "Is that the entirety of it?" the Ternakian asked, antennae twitching. Buck grinned. "Y'all want the long version?" Several nodded cautiously. "All right. Step 1, don't underestimate the guy who looks like he just rolled out of a dive bar. Step 2, if you're in a fair fight, your plan sucked. Step 3, this one's important, never interrupt a human while he's humming a Johnny Cash tune. It usually means something's about to explode." Xerix's translator made a coughing sound, trying to adjust to Earth's idioms. The chamber murmured with confusion and poorly concealed concern. A few delegates interpreted Buck's tone as a form of performance art. Others weren't so sure. A representative from the Vrylak Dominion, whose species evolved in the cold logic of binary war simulations, raised a question. "Your record indicates an excessive use of lethal force, often without proportional justification. How do you reconcile that with peacekeeping initiatives?" Buck tilted his head. "I've seen peace. I've also seen what people call peace, while they're loading weapons behind closed doors. Sometimes peace needs a guy like me just standing there, making sure no one forgets what happens when they break it." The Vrylak fell silent, its logic processor caught in a loop. Xerix cleared his throat. "What the Council means to ask is, how do you define acceptable collateral? Simple. If it breathes and ain't trying to kill me or mine, it stays alive. And if it is, then it learns real fast why I don't run out of bullets." The murmurs returned, but this time with a tinge of unease. A distant member of the insectoid or Aketh leaned toward its neighbor and whispered something acidic. Buck heard it. His eyes flicked to the speaker like a laser sight. "You got something to say, Bugsy?" The Raketh delegate froze, mandibles clacking nervously. "Didn't think so." Xerix tried to regain control. "Perhaps a more productive avenue would be cultural exchange. We were hoping you might demonstrate an Earth practice. A symbol of trust, perhaps." Buck shrugged, pulled out a battered flask, and took a long swig. "Back home we settle trust with a drink, a poker game, or a fist fight. Sometimes all 3 in that order." "Drinking?" Xerix blinked. "Yeah. Builds camaraderie. You ever had a whiskey sour with a guy, realized he's been shot twice in the same bar, and still bought you around? That's diplomacy." Before Xerix could respond, a chime rang through the chamber. An urgent transmission appeared on the overhead screen, a distress beacon from a minor colony near the Expanse. "Pirate activity. Armed skirmish. civilians at risk. The council stirred, flustered by the intrusion of reality into ceremonial proceedings. Most delegates advocated for a committee. A few suggested observation. Buck stood. "How far?" Xyrix hesitated. "2 sectors. 20 minutes with a jump drive." "I'll go," Buck said, stretching his shoulders like he was warming up for a county fair brawl. "This isn't Earth's jurisdiction," the Ternakian protested. Buck cocked an eyebrow. "You brought me here to help, right? Seems help's needed." Xyrix paused. "You would go alone?" "Been alone plenty. Ain't the part that worries me," one council member scoffed. "You'll be killed." Buck slung his duffel over his shoulder again. "That's the plan, every day. Just hasn't stuck yet." In less than 10 minutes, Buck had secured a shuttle, customized the interface with duct tape and a cassette deck, and set course for the colony. The council chamber buzzed with conflicting responses. Admiration, fear, outrage, amusement. Xyrix returned to his private quarters and reviewed the kill logs again. They had missed something. A record buried beneath layers of bureaucratic misfiling. A backwater skirmish labeled Unsanctioned Engagement, Aurora Sector. 1 human, 47 enemy dead. 0 casualties on Buck's side. The report ended with a quote, "They brought drones. I brought a hammer." Back on the shuttle, Buck hummed to himself and loaded his weapons in sequence, each click and snap part of a ritual more sacred to him than any alien custom. The cassette player wheezed to life again with an 80s synth beat. "Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games." He glanced at the nav system, leaned back, and muttered, "Let's see what your pirates think about karaoke and incoming." Fire. 20 minutes later, Xyrix received an incoming report. The colony had been secured. All pirates neutralized. 0 civilian casualties. No reinforcements had arrived yet. Just 1 signature had landed, wrecked their systems, walked through the smoke, and left a skull impaled on a maintenance wrench as a warning. Attached was a single image. Buck Malone sitting on a crate, sunglasses on, blood spattered, holding a half-eaten sandwich. Xyrix stared for a long time before deleting the picture. Not out of fear, out of awe. The kind of awe that came when a carefully managed civilization realized it had invited chaos to dinner and accidentally made him the guest of honor. In the following hours, the council met again. Discussions were less formal now. Some wanted Buck confined to Earth. Others suggested using him as a deterrent, like a loaded gun on the table. But none dared deny the results. Meanwhile, Buck returned to the station, strolling through the hangar like he'd just come back from a picnic. A junior officer ran up, saluted, and tried to speak. "Sir, they said the pirates—" "Yeah, they're rethinking their life choices. What's for lunch?" The officer blinked. "You ate during combat?" "Had a Reuben halfway through. Little dry. You got mustard around here?" The officer could only nod. Buck passed him by and whistled low, the tune eerily upbeat given the aftermath. Later that evening, Xyrix found himself alone again, reviewing data. The final transmission from the pirate leader had been decoded. "Who is this? We weren't told Earth-bred demons." Xyrix closed the terminal. His reflection in the screen looked tired. Behind him, a soft mechanical voice recited an outdated Earth proverb Buck had once mumbled over drinks. "Never bet against the guy with nothing left to lose and a full clip." Xyrix looked up at the stars beyond the window and whispered to himself. They thought they invited a warrior, but what they brought in is an extinction event in boots. And somewhere in the mess hall, Buck Malone was arm-wrestling a 4-armed alien for the last piece of cornbread, grinning like the world had just started spinning in his favor again. They should have never let Buck Malone sit in on a strategy meeting. 2 cycles after the pirate incident, Buck was invited, well, technically ordered, to participate in a war council aboard the Imperial Command vessel Radiance of Unity. High-ranking tacticians from 14 systems gathered around a holographic display, rotating projections of potential threats along the outer fringe. The air was thick with protocol and posturing. Buck showed up late, holding a half-eaten banana and wearing mirrored aviators like he was about to direct air traffic at a 1983 air show. General Zoval of the Drexian fleet began with a sweeping analysis of potential incursion vectors, detailing velocity matrices and supply chain forecasts. Buck nodded politely and bit into the banana, chewing with the bored patience of a man listening to someone explain how to politely lose a fistfight. When it was Buck's turn to contribute, he leaned over the table, tapped a few buttons, badly causing the display to flicker, and pointed at a specific trade route. Here, you've got 10,000 supply drones running through a corridor with no escort, except a few sentry bots that couldn't hold their own in a pillow fight. That's where I'd hit you. A hush spread through the chamber. Admiral Vethrix of the Algari Collective scoffed, long fingers steepled before his ridged forehead. That's not a combat zone. That's a logistics passage. Unarmed. Buck grinned. Yeah, that's the point. You hit where they don't expect. You want a fair fight or a short one? No one laughed, but no one disagreed. Xerix watched from the side, arms folded, observing how quickly Buck shifted the tone of the meeting. His lack of etiquette should have alienated the delegates. Instead, his absolute certainty and oddly sharp logic disarmed them. He didn't speak like a soldier. He spoke like a gambler who already knew how the cards would fall. Later, aboard the Council's security hub, a separate issue began to boil. A mysterious fleet had appeared at the edge of Council territory. Unmarked ships, advanced stealth, capabilities, broadcasting in a frequency range too ancient to decipher quickly. Panic spread through the chain of command, and yet someone made the curious decision to ask Buck what he thought. He listened to the intercepted signal once and shook his head. That's Morse code. Jesus, they're using freaking Morse. Somebody dig up a history book. Xerix stared. You can read that? Buck shrugged. Sure. It's how my old man used to send messages during camping trips. Most useful part of the Boy Scouts, besides learning how to break into vending machines. He jotted down the message on a napkin. Coming for the Earthman. He dies screaming. The room fell into stunned silence. Xerix reached for the alert beacon, but Buck stopped him. You hit that alarm and you'll just spook 'em. Let me take care of it. Alone. Xerix looked as if he'd swallowed a battery. This is not some random pirate raid. This looks like a professional assassination. Fleet. 17 vessels. Covert design. We don't even know who sent them. Buck leaned back, eyes calm and cold. I do. Xerix blinked. Who? Ghost Company. Even the security techs paused. Ghost Company was a rumor. A Black Ops ghost unit from a pre-Alliance war, decommissioned and erased from records decades ago. According to the myth, they specialized in vanishing into deep space and leaving trails of bodies behind them, perfect operations with 0 survivors. Some claimed they were genetically engineered. Others believed they were AI-controlled husks, still following kill orders from a forgotten war. Buck pulled a lighter from his jacket and flicked it once, watching the flame dance. I ran ops against Ghost Company on Varelia 9. Thought I killed the last of them. Guess someone rebuilt what I broke. Xerix struggled to form a sentence. Why would they come after you? Because I'm the one who made their kill count look small. The fleet dropped from hyperspace near a Council refueling station along the mid-reach spine. It was a carefully chosen location, isolated, understaffed, and far from reinforcements. But it wasn't empty. Buck had already arrived, having commandeered a small but over-engineered diplomatic cruiser and outfitted it with every illegal weapon system he could scrounge up in 2 hours. The ship bristled with outdated Earth tech, modified warheads, duct-taped consoles, and an old boombox duct-taped to the dashboard playing Fortunate Son at maximum volume. As Ghost Company's lead ship hailed the station, Buck responded instead. "Hey boys, been a while. I'd offer coffee, but I use the machine for parts. Come on down, let's hug it out." The enemy's response came in the form of plasma. Torpedoes. Buck grinned like he'd just found his high school rival in a bar with a glass jaw. The fight wasn't clean, it wasn't elegant, but it was brutally effective. Council drones recorded the engagement from orbit. One man, one retrofitted junk cruiser, 17 kill marks by the end. He didn't dodge like a pilot. He juked like a street fighter. He turned off targeting systems to fight by gut, manually fired missiles using a cracked touchscreen, and, at one point, guided a crippled enemy vessel into the path of another by pushing it with his own ship like a cosmic game of pool. After 43 minutes, the final ship exploded in a spiral of blue fire. The refueling station remained untouched, not one civilian harmed. Buck docked, singed and limping, covered in hydraulic fluid and what smelled suspiciously like gasoline. When Xyrix met him on the landing platform, Buck handed over a data stick. "What's this?" "Ghost Company's comms archive. Figured you'd want a souvenir." "You retrieved this mid-combat?" "No, I downloaded it before the last fight. They were broadcasting their kill playlists. I figured I could override it. Turns out, even elite assassins forget to password lock their Spotify." Xyrix sighed. "That's not a word in our language. Learn it. It's important." Buck walked past him, whistling the theme from Beverly Hills Cop. That night, Council intel departments reviewed the wreckage and logs. Each kill confirmed. No backup, no planetary defenses. Just one Earthman with a vendetta and a complete disregard for standard combat protocols. The death toll among enemies was staggering. Ghost Company, previously considered an urban legend, was officially designated a neutralized threat. One of the alien analysts tried to calculate Buck's total lifetime combat record and found the number too high for the system to process cleanly. The screen simply glitched and reset. When they finally uploaded the data to the military archives, the record had to be hard-coded into a separate server to avoid corrupting more sensitive AI indexes. The header read, "Malone, Buck. Codename, Overkill." A Drexian researcher coined a new term. Malone events. Low-probability occurrences where the human response completely defies projected outcomes through chaotic, irrational, and disproportionately lethal means. The next morning, Buck was back in the mess hall, trying to teach a sentient jellyfish how to shuffle a deck of cards. "No, you gotta hold 'em like this. Look, tentacles don't mean you can cheat." Xyrix sat across from him, exhausted. "Why didn't you ask for help?" "Because I knew they'd panic. Panic slows people down. Slowing down gets people killed. I figured I'd go in, clean house, and be back in time for breakfast." "And if you died?" Buck paused. "Then at least I'd die doing what I'm good at. And I'd make damn sure they remembered me." The jellyfish made a sad honking noise and dropped the cards. Buck leaned in and smirked. "Don't sweat it. I've lost poker games to smarter houseplants." Xyrix stared at him, deeply conflicted between admiration and an impending ulcer. "You know they're going to make statues of you. Better make 'em out of metal. I tend to break the plaster ones." Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread. The legend of the Earthman grew. Enemies debated whether to engage human fleets at all. Recruitment into human-led squads skyrocketed. Entire combat doctrines began to shift toward unpredictability. But somewhere deeper, beyond the whispers and stats, those who had seen what Buck Malone could do, the ones who had watched him tear down a mythical kill squad with a smirk and a mixtape, knew the truth. You didn't send Buck Malone to start a war. You sent him to finish it before anyone else got the chance. It wasn't supposed to go down like this. Buck Malone didn't do by-the-book warfare. He didn't follow protocol. He didn't need some fancy battle tactics or high-level strategic committees telling him how to win. He got the job done, the way he always had, raw, reckless, and ruthless. Yet here he was, standing on the edge of something far bigger than his usual one-man show. He had always been the hammer, but now it seemed like he might be the anvil too. The council had finally realized what they had in him, and it wasn't just his kill count that made them nervous. It was the way his presence shifted the power dynamics. Even the Empire was starting to take notice. The very Empire that had once mocked humanity's military potential, dismissed it as primitive and unworthy of their full attention, was now seeing Buck for what he was. A weapon, honed by a lifetime of survival, and hardened by experiences they couldn't even begin to understand. The strange part? Buck wasn't sure how to feel about it. Being the sharpest tool in the shed wasn't as satisfying as it sounded when the shed itself was the size of a galaxy. Back at the Council's command center, things were escalating quickly. The threat from Ghost Company had been neutralized, but now there was the matter of the Empire itself. The pirates, the mercenaries, the nameless factions all felt like small potatoes compared to what was coming. The Empire had taken one look at Earth's response to their games and realized they'd miscalculated. The first wave of their retaliatory fleet had already left hyperspace and was barreling toward Council space. Their message was clear. They wanted Buck Malone, and they didn't want him alive. Xyrix had approached Buck with a plan, one that Buck found almost laughable. The idea of negotiating with an alien empire over a manhunt? It had disaster written all over it. Buck's response was simple. If they want me, they can come find me. I'll be here. Xyrix, on the other hand, wasn't taking any chances. They had information, intelligence that suggested a surprise ambush. The Empire was coming at them full throttle, and this time they wouldn't hesitate to level entire planets to get their hands on Buck. No more games, no more negotiations. Buck paced the command room, trying to drown out the muttering voices of the strategists. He wasn't built for this. He was built for chaos, for messy, explosive confrontations that left everyone questioning how they survived. This political chess game? Not his scene. You're not listening, Xyrix said, his tone sharp with frustration. We need to work with them. The Alliance has been successful in diplomacy before. We're running out of time. Buck threw his hands up. Diplomacy? You want me to sit across the table from an alien warlord and share a cup of tea? Hell, I've shot things for less. Xyrix held his ground. The stakes are higher than your kill count now. You don't get to keep shooting your way out of this. We need a plan, Buck. Buck ran a hand through his hair, muttering under his breath. He knew Xyrix was right. The situation had changed, and fast. There was no way he could keep playing the lone wolf forever. But it wasn't in his nature to stand still. He needed action. He needed it now. Not some drawn-out political process. Without another word, he turned on his heel and marched out of the room. Xyrix followed, though with far more hesitance. I'm going to handle this my way, Buck called back over his shoulder. Xyrix called after him. And what's your way exactly? You'll see, Buck grinned over his shoulder. And trust me, it won't involve any cups of tea. The hangar bay was already buzzing with activity when Buck arrived. His ship was ready, of course. It always was. The Rogue Wave, his beloved vessel, gleamed under the station's lights, looking like it had been slapped together by a team of disgruntled engineers and someone who really liked firepower. It was no beauty, but it was everything Buck needed. He gave the technicians a quick nod and climbed aboard. There wasn't time to waste. Xyrix caught up to him just as he was securing his helmet. Buck, this isn't how you fix things. This is madness. Buck shot him a smirk as he strapped in. What's the plan, Xy? Call for reinforcements and hope they show up before the Empire flattens us? Nah, not my style. You've got your diplomatic nonsense, and I've got my missiles. Let's see which one works better. Xyrix stood still for a moment, a quiet concern settling in his posture. I want to help you, Buck. but I don't know if even you can survive the Empire on your own." Buck didn't answer right away. He just looked forward, at the view ahead of him, and then back at Xerix, with a knowing smile. "We'll see about that." With a final salute, Buck powered up the engines, and the rogue wave shot into the sky, heading straight for the Empire's incoming fleet. He wasn't going to wait for them to come to him. He'd give them a welcome they wouldn't forget. As the ship entered the outer boundary of the Empire's space, Buck's mind raced. He had never liked having his back against a wall, and that's exactly where he was now. But that didn't mean he couldn't fight his way out. There was always a way. The trick was to keep them guessing. The Empire was too used to making the first move. Now it was his turn. He punched in the codes to override the ship's weapon systems and smiled to himself as the targeting computer flickered to life. He wasn't about to play their game. No, Buck Malone was about to make his own rules. As he closed in on the fleet, his heart pounded in his chest. He wasn't just fighting for his life anymore. He was fighting for something far bigger than that. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but they were about to learn that humanity wasn't a species to be trifled with. And Buck Malone? Well, he was about to show them why. One ship against a fleet. A reckless plan, maybe, but Buck knew something that most didn't. When you're up against the odds, that's when you get to be the hero. Or in his case, the storm that tears everything down.